Most salespeople and even founders in the high ticket space and the agency space don't actually know what's driving their prospects. Some think that their buyers are chasing the benefit and the features of what you offer. Some just think that people are chasing the results, which in a sense, I guess they are. But 9 times out of 10, they're running from some sort of pain. Today, I'm going to break down the difference between the two motivation types so you can understand what type of person or what type of buyer that you're speaking to, and you can get into what we call a hot button, which is the thing that makes them tick, the thing that's going to make them want to invest into themselves. If you're new here, my name's Adam Davies. I'm the founder and CEO of Sales Chief. We're a sales recruitment, but also sales management company. We work with some of the biggest coaches and founders and agency owners over here in the UK. So there's only 2 reasons that anybody ever buys anything. They either want to move towards a desired outcome, which is a towards motivation, ego, growth, status, freedom, whatever it may be, or they want to get away from something. So something really, really painful. It could be some sort of stress, it could be debt, it could be embarrassment, whatever it may be. That's what they're looking to escape from. So that's an away from motivation. The benefit of speaking to somebody with an away from motivation, normally in your discovery phase, their pain or their position at the moment becomes a little bit more apparent. They're normally more open with it, and they're going to go into a little bit of detail with it because they're at that point now where they're potentially about to break, right? So it's going to be a little bit easier to open them up into discovery. The downside to it, a lot of the time, depending on what you're selling, one of their main problems is a finance thing. A lot of it's stemming from financial issues. So actually when you get to paying for your thing, then you've got a few logistical issues. With a towards motivation, they're probably going to be just all right if they don't buy your thing. So at the start of the call, it's actually a little bit harder to get them unguarded, and it's a little bit harder at the start of the call into discovery and getting them into thinking about serious change. But the benefit you've got is a lot of these guys, they're just going to be fine if they don't buy your thing. So the chances are financially they're very secure. So when it comes to funding your thing, the finances are there. But both motivations trigger action, but you have to treat each one individually. Many online courses and coaches really only target the away from motivation. I actually prefer to speak to people who are towards motivation, people that are goal orientated, maybe ego orientated, because I'm a big believer in hard now, easy later, as opposed to easy now, hard later, which is what the discovery would look like. But if you're only selling the dream, more income, more time, financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, whatever it is, and that's what you're selling, it's very, very vague. So what you're doing is you're actually throwing mud at a wall and hoping something sticks. And if that's the case as well, particularly if you're a business owner and if your salesperson's doing that, you might as well just do a webinar because you can pitch it in that way en masse. And you don't have to pay any commissions to your sales team. The benefit of having a one-to-one call is you can identify, again, what we call that hot button, that thing that makes them tick, that thing that really hurts them, whether it is an away from motivation or towards motivation. You can identify it and showcase exactly and pinpoint exactly how you fix that thing. So an example of an away from motivation for somebody I might serve might be a coach or an agency who's spending £20,000 a month on ads. They've done it for the last 3 months and very little's come through. They've lost money. It's getting to the point now where they're running out of money. And if they don't do something very, very quickly, they're probably going to either have to start laying off staff, shutting the doors, whatever it may be. That's it's a perfect case of an away from motivation. A towards motivation might be a already 7-figure coach who's got a business, it's ticking along nicely, it's doing really well, but the lead flow might not just be as efficient as possible, or the leads aren't being handled as efficiently as possible, not necessarily the lead flow. In which case, if he doesn't work with me, he's probably going to be okay. We're not shutting the doors anytime soon. He's going to get by just fine. But when you start tapping into the ego, when you start finding out other coaches and consultants are doubling their performance and they've got a smaller team, that becomes a problem. So what we do in that scenario is we jump forward to the future. We look at, so why that goal specifically? Once we find that goal, we now work our way back because there'll be lots of headaches, challenges, and painful things that they're doing at the moment, chasing that outcome. And those are what you're going to solve. When we're doing an away from motivation, we're finding out where they are now and we're showcasing how we can get them into a position of what that desired outcome looks like. So from a towards motivation, we're jumping forward to the future to get the desired outcome, and then we're bringing it back and finding out what headaches are being caused, what's happening as a result of not being there. That's where the headache, that's where the pain lies for that guy or girl. For an away from motivation, the pain and the headache's already there because they're living it. Hopefully that makes sense. Then once we've identified that, now we can have a decent discovery because we know what's important to them. We don't want to waste time just scattergunning questions. It sounds like an interrogation. It's obvious what you're doing. You sound like a salesperson. And more important of all, it doesn't sound like you care. It just sounds like you're just asking questions because you've got to ask questions. But once you identify what that thing is, everything flows. You can take it deeper. You can go to the next level. You can find out really what's hurting about that thing. And then when you do get to the part where you're showcasing your solution, you can do it in a way that's really going to benefit them. But more importantly as well, you can ask real implication questions. We ask it what happens in 6 months' time if you don't fix it. But unless you're talking about the real thing, that really painful hot button that we need to be pressing, it's not going to stick and it's not going to hit. So we've got tons of our sales reps that we recruit for and we manage that are using our AI software, and often it pulls up that you're not asking deep enough implication questions. And they're like, well, I did ask it. I asked what happens in 6 months if you don't fix it. But you asked about the wrong thing. It wasn't the thing that was actually really important. You wasn't really listening. There was no active listening going on. You wasn't listening to what they're not saying, reading between the lines to get to the real thing that's really hurting. The benefit, particularly if you're over here in the UK, I say the hindrance you've got is we are the best in the world of tucking our pains and problems to the back of our mind and just pretending it's not a thing, it's not happening. Our job on that discovery is to bring it to a front of mind. We're not as open as other nations, particularly like the Americans and stuff like that. However, we are loyal buyers and we do have problems that we need to fix. So as soon as we get into that, and it's particularly harder for a towards motivation. So once you understand whether it's an away from motivation, whether it's a towards motivation, now you're best equipped to actually find out what that thing is. Then we can do our 6 questions, which is what's happening? Why is it happening? So context behind their situation, if you like, for all you spin sellers out there. What's happening as a result of it's happening? This is now where the pain sits, like the deeper rooted pain, the real things that's giving them headaches, keeping them up at night. And then what have you tried to stop it from happening? Getting an idea what their decision making's been in the past, what they've tried to fix it, potentially reducing any objections further down the line. Now we can ask implication questions. So what happens if you don't stop it from happening? Again, tonality needs to shift here. If you're speaking to a high-level CEO who's very direct and you start asking fluffy questions like, so what happens in 6 months' time if we don't fix this? They're probably going to tell you where to go. So you can be a little bit more direct with your questions and then double down on it. So we can say something like, so you probably don't need me to tell you, but in 6 months' time, if you haven't fixed this, what kind of situation is that going to leave you in? What kind of headaches is that going to give you? When you ask it like that, then you're mirroring their energy. They're more likely to answer that question. Then we can double into it. So if they say, well, we'll be sitting in more mediocrity. More mediocrity, wow, okay. So you can kind of double it back to them. If they're a little bit more emotionally driven because they're an away from motivation, yeah, we can ask a little bit more emotionally driven questions and we can ask it in a more empathetic way. So what happens in 6 months' time if you don't quite fix this? We can do that with those guys. But again, if we're speaking to high-level CEOs that are already doing just fine, they're just going to say, well, I'll be all right. I'm sure I'll be doing okay. And then you've lost the sale at that point. So it's understanding that can even help with your tonality. Then we can ask, what does it look like once you've stopped it from happening? So we can start to future pace in that case. That's a great discovery. And it all stems from identifying very, very quickly whether they're an away from motivation or whether they're a towards motivation. Now, if you like this video, maybe you want to check out this video because YouTube, for some reason, thinks that you definitely should watch it. See you in the next one.